everybody. This is Margie Meacham, and welcome back to the Learning to Go podcast. Today, my guest is Julian Stodd. He's the author of Social Leadership Handbook, and he's the captain and founder of Sea Salt Learning. He and his team help organizations and their teams get fit for the social age. You can learn more about Julian's work at www.seasaltlearning.com, and we posted his social media connections on our site. Julian, welcome. You know, Sea Salt Learning, there must be an interesting story behind the name of your company. Can you share it with us?
Well, absolutely. It's really because most of my work is about exploration, about exploring the social age, the organizations that we're in, the wider social systems that are evolving around us. And so I wanted to have a name for the company that was sort of related to that notion of exploring. And so we came up with Sea Salt because it's about having harbors in every country, safe harbors in different spaces. And also because salt is essential for life, like learning, really. Words like salary and soldier come from salt. So I wanted to have a tie-in with that. And also because it's rather fun. We get to draw and sketch lots of nautical imagery, which livens things up as well.
Yeah, it is. It's great. And as you know, my focus is on applying brain science to the learning process. And so I know that we are hardwired to explore. So I think you've really chosen not just a poetic and very visual name, but one that is really very, I guess I'd say it's sort of a metaphor for all of us. We're all on a journey and our brains are constantly exploring. And they float in basically a sea of salt water. So inside our skulls. So I could go on with that, with that analogy forever. So I love it. So
well, like
let's start. Yeah, let's start with this. The social age. For those of us who may not be sure we know what you mean by that, can you give us, a little basic definition?
Absolutely. I talk about the social age as the world we live in today, a fundamentally evolved ecosystem. And it's changed in many different ways. Some of them are very visible and obvious. The rapidly iterating nature of technology, the rise of the social collaborative spaces, the Facebooks and Twitters and such like. But there are a lot of deeper changes as well, such as the fractured social contract between organization and individual, the rise of new types of socially moderated power and authority, which are really challenging the established types of power that went before. Indeed, I often say that the two primary effects that we're feeling from the technology are ones of connectivity. We're connected in so many different ways outside of any formal control, and democratization, the sort of features of creativity and innovation, of production and distribution are substantially democratized now. So I really differentiate the social age from what came before, because the digital age may have been about technology, but the social age is fundamentally about people and the evolved relationship between people and organizations. And that's really where my work sits, at the convergence of formal and social systems, the formal hierarchies of organizations and the social hierarchies of communities. And really what we can achieve by recognizing and developing both of those spaces.
Okay, thanks for that. And I was about to ask you, or I planned to ask you, what makes this social age different than before, but you've anticipated that question. So let's go on to the next one then. So how can leaders get themselves aligned, find a fit for this new era? So they probably feel like, I just got used to the digital age. And now you're telling me there's another age that I'm going to have to modify my business to. So what kind of advice do you have for them?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing I normally say is that the social age is a time of constant change. So there's no thing that we can do to a formal system to make it hardened or more resilient to that change. Indeed, we're doing almost exactly the wrong thing if we try to build in our adaptation through more system, more process, more control. Instead, I like to think that there are these two parallel pillars, the formal system, which we can control, and the social system, which is all of that connectivity, sense-making community and so forth. And really, what social leadership is about is how formal leaders, people who have a space in a hierarchy, can develop and earn the reputation and social authority to be effective within those social communities. The thing is, if we take our formal authority and try to apply it in social spaces, it just kills those spaces. It makes them formal. So that won't work. Social authority is contextual and consensual and granted to us by the community itself. So the interesting thing is that formal leaders, if they're willing to put the effort in and learn and earn a reputation, may be awarded social authority by the community. But interestingly, some formal leaders will have no social authority at all. They'll absolutely lack social leadership and hence be less effective. But of course, some people in the community, some people who have no formal authority whatsoever, may earn very high social leadership. They may have high social capital. So that's why you end up with this challenge between formal and social systems, which we're seeing widely around us. It's a great leveling, a democratization of voices. So the advice that I'd give to any formal leader who truly wants to be effective, wants their organization to be effective, is really to invest in their community. And I don't mean investing money, I mean investing of their generosity, of their thought, of their time. It's through acts of kindness and humility, through acts of sharing, that we earn that reputation. And of course, the interesting thing about reputation is you can't buy it. You have to put the time in to earn it.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and really sets you apart because there's kind of a mindset in a lot of businesses that, well, something's broken, we'll just hire a consultant. In effect, we'll buy a fix. And what you're going to tell them is, it's not that simple. You are really the one who has to make this happen, you and your team. So do you find that that's difficult for people that they say, yes, we want to become social leaders, and then once they discover what's involved, it's scarier and harder than they thought?
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that I get to work with all around the world with many complex, large organizations, the real dinosaurs as well as the exciting tech teenagers. I work with the military, I work with third sector, I work in many different spaces, and there's a real commonality of response that you find. Overwhelmingly, a lot of organizations are interested in this space, and a lot of good people are trying to do work in this space. So I don't that often find that either individuals or organizations are deeply resistant to it. In fact, kind of the opposite. They absolutely want to develop this capability and are indeed willing to invest their time, their effort, their energy to do so. My next book is about organizational change, and it looks at the notion of a constrained organization. And what happens in that type of organization is they invest in this social connectivity. They start to build communities. They sort of empower the community to find its voice. And then at the very moment it does, these control effects kick in, and they try to reimpose formal control on the system. So it's not that they're stuck on the starting line. They've started. They start to get up some speed, and then as soon as they reach the first corner, they panic and hammer the brakes on. So that's the typical challenge that I see. Well-meaning, well-intentioned, good people doing the right things, but then when push comes to shove, the organization or the system reimposes formal control and seeks sanctuary in the things that gave it its formal strength and power before.
So let's talk a little bit about your next book. I've been following you. You've been very visibly sharing daily. You've been working out loud as you work on it. And I know a lot of folks are following you on that journey. Why did you decide to take that approach?
Well, it's a very interesting question, really. I believe fundamentally in an approach of working out loud, and sometimes I sort of joke about it and say that just means making it up as you go along. But it's quite a serious point, actually. I think we have a fundamentally evolved relationship with knowledge, and we're more successful if we are able to operate in communities. So I share, as you know, all of my work. I write every day, and I develop my ideas there. I write the things I'm interested in, not particularly the things I think people want to read. I mean, I feel very fortunate that people do want to read it, but I follow where my interest takes me. And that's my sort of daily writing. I call the blog my first reflective space. And you know, even if you've been following it the last few months, you'll see I write about leadership, about learning, culture, change, technology, about politics and disruption and resilience. You know, but I use the social age to find a common narrative through all that. But working out loud isn't just about sharing your sort of odd pieces of thinking. It's also very true, I think, when you're writing longer form. So I spend about a week, a month writing now in long form towards books. And I find the value of working out loud changes from blogging through to writing books. So when I'm blogging every day, the feedback I get in the moment is extremely useful. You know, seeing what people like, what they follow, what they ask about, what they comment about. It's a very dynamic, synchronous kind of relationship, especially, you know, on Twitter, you get straight into conversations. By the time I get to write a book, I've generally got a much clearer sense of what I'm going to write. And the primary advantage I get from working out loud at that stage is momentum. Because if I think about the Change book, it's over 65,000 words and 70 illustrations so far. And it's a big body of work. And frankly, it takes me, you know, quite a bit of time and effort. I have to get myself into it. I have to sort of pull myself along. I'm really good at writing, and I'm really terrible at going back and editing. So at those points, I draw energy from the community, because every tiny little comment or thing that people say just makes you feel engaged and connected. So it's probably an interesting story, really, about community itself. Sometimes you support it, sometimes it supports you, and there's a very clear difference for me between blogging and books. And of course, you know, with the other book I'm working on at the moment, the Social Leadership Practitioner Guide, I've also crowdfunded it for the first time, and that was a very interesting and actually challenging exercise for me, because I really thought long and hard before doing it, because in some ways crowdfunding feels counter to the principles of working out loud. You know, I don't seek to make money from selling my ideas. So the notion of crowdfunding made me think quite long and hard. In fact, with all of my other books, every book I sell, I give free away. That's kind of the model I work on. So I don't try to make money from it. I try to make it sort of revenue neutral, as it were. So the crowdfunding was a real interesting exercise for me, and it went very well, but it really helped me with the writing process, just the sort of interest, enthusiasm, and kindness of so many people. I don't mean kindness in terms of money. I mean kindness in terms of thought and good wishes. It's actually very significant when you're traveling so much and you've got your head in these things. So yeah, it's a key part of working for me.
Well, and it strikes me that what you're doing really is role modeling what you're saying about the social leader, because you don't have that formal official standing with any one person or organization, but you have earned and continue to re-earn the position of a leader and influencer by being very generous and sharing. And that's probably one reason why you feel like so much is coming back to you, is because you put yourself out there, and so it's easy for people to reciprocate.
I think there's something in that. I mean, it's quite challenging. I said very early on when I started writing the blog, I laid down three rules, really, principles to adhere to. Before I'd thought of any of the social leadership work, or even started writing about the social age, and the three principles are still the three rules that I work by, and the first is to always be positive. So if I read something, or if I read a book, or I come across a client and I'm working with them and they're doing something which I just think is absolutely wrong, I won't criticize. I won't, at least I won't kind of throw in criticism unless I'm helping to make it right. And I don't mean that in some, um, I'm not, I'm not trying to sort of say I'm really good at doing that, but it's what I try to do. So if I see something I think is wrong, I will not just say, well, that's a load of rubbish and they're idiots. I'll try to engage with it and make it right. And the second thing I do is to always, I try to always respond to any comment. And I don't just sort of look for I don't do anything like trying to sort of optimize responses to people with loads of followers. If somebody's got 3 followers, I'm really happy about it. In fact, I'm most happy, if I'm honest, when somebody engages and talks to me and follows me who's got, a small group of followers and is a practitioner in a small organization somewhere in the world who is reaching out. And that's kind of key. That's really the value of community for me. I mean, I said before, I get to meet so many interesting people, but I take as much from that. And if I'm able to give anything into that, I'm very happy about it indeed. But I take so much from it as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think I couldn't have said it better myself as someone who's working in somewhat a similar space and trying to achieve a community of my own. I find your comments inspiring and certainly things that I've thought about as well. So maybe we'll have a follow-up conversation about building a community one of these days.
That would be fun. I'd like that.
Yeah. So tell me now, Julian, what's got you most excited that's coming soon that you can give us a little peek about?
Well, that's a dangerous question to ask me, Margie. My brain rather fires in a lot of different directions, so I'll try to keep the list short. Social Leadership: My First 100 Days is the next book that will come out, and it'll be out in April, and it's a practitioner guide. It's literally I'm sort of telling everybody it's what you should do at 10 o'clock on a wet Tuesday morning to develop social leadership. So it's 100 days, 100 activities, 100 illustrations, and it's very much down at the practical level. That will be followed by the Change book, which is about building the socially dynamic organization. And that is, it'll be my biggest book to date. It's my widest piece of work to date. And it's a kind of overall holistic view of how organizations change, what prevents them from changing, and then this notion of a socially dynamic organization and how we go about building it. So I'm very excited about that. I'm hoping it will be out in May or June. That's the kind of the book space, and I won't get into the details of the 5 others in various stages of development. Beyond that, I'm very excited with a few ideas that are bubbling away. Some of the work around types of power is evolving quite nicely. So I've been able to write a little bit about that in relation to the US elections and of course more widely in the context of social leadership. But the biggest other thing is in 2017, this year, I'm kicking off the Landscape of Trust research project. And this will be, as far as I'm aware, the largest research project in the world about trust. And I did the prototype work late last year, and I worked out loud on all of that and shared it as I went. But the main study will kick off on the 1st of April, and we'll look at trust between individuals, within communities, in organizations, and in technology. And it's intended to be a very comprehensive exercise. So that's sort of probably at the pinnacle of my excitement at the moment. Is I'm very much looking forward to launching the first questions in that survey at the beginning of April.
Oh, well, please keep in touch with me, and I will be happy. I'm sure our listeners here would love to participate and help you in your research.
I would love to take you up on that. I will share with you. I have a sort of a list for people who wish to sign up to be part of or to follow the research, and I'll be looking to gather an initial 1,000 narrative accounts of trust, and then a series of questions beyond that, and then in different markets, in different sectors, in different countries, because I'm also looking at the segmentation by industry, by culture, by country, and so on and so forth. So I will certainly follow up on that with you.
Okay, great. Now, how does someone get in touch with you?
Well, that's a question my mother asks me very often when I fail to return. Um, so I'm reasonably easy to find, just under Julian Stodd. You can find me on Twitter at Julian Stodd. You can find me on LinkedIn at Julian Stodd. And my blog is very simple, julianstodd.wordpress.com. So I'm usually easy to locate, and always happy to answer questions, share ideas. If there's any particular aspect people are in, I've got something like 1,700 blog posts, and I can usually find my way around them. So yes, I'm always happy to engage in conversations about these areas.
Okay, and for our listeners, we're also going to post all of that on our site along with the link to this podcast so that you can stay in touch with Julian. So my guest today has been Julian Stodd. He is the captain and founder of Seesaw Learning, author of several books that are either in the works or out right now, and you'll be seeing those books listed on Margie's bookshelf on our site. And Julian, I just want to thank you for your time today and sharing your insights. It's really been a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thanks.